So this will go over some lines and angles vocabulary. So the first one is parallel lines. So parallel lines are coplanar lines, which if you forget, co means together, planar means on a plane. So these are lines that are on a plane. So if they're parallel, they do not intersect. This symbol right here means is parallel to. So down below in the diagram, these red arrows right here mean that they're parallel. So I could write Q is parallel to S. Perpendicular lines are coplanar lines that intersect and form a 90-degree angle. This symbol here means is perpendicular to. So down here in our example, you can see that S and T intersect, and then right here they're forming a 90-degree angle. So I could write S is perpendicular to T. Skew lines are non-coplanar lines that are not parallel and do not intersect. So the easiest way to find non-coplanar lines, so if you kind of look at this diagram, it looks like a box. So I like to choose one line that's like on the front of the box. And then I like to go to the back of the box and choose a line that's going a complete different direction. So kind of like this one. So that's an example of skew lines. Or I could choose like these green ones. These would also be considered skew. So there's lots of sets, but you basically want them to be pretty far away from each other and going different directions. Parallel planes are planes that do not intersect. Again, if you kind of think of a box, the front would be parallel to the back. Or you could have the left parallel to the right. Or you have the top parallel to the bottom. Just as a reminder, when you're naming a plane, you're going to pick 3 points on the plane that aren't all on the same line. So if I want to name this top plane, I could just choose 3 of the letters. So I could call it plane ADE. If I wanted to name this bottom one, I could call it CBF. So we're just going to pick 3 of the 4. Here's some examples. So it says all angle measures shown are 90 degrees. And it says PO and ON. So if we look at PO, here's PO, here's ON. And remember, all the angle measures are 90. So we know right here, this is a 90-degree angle. So that would make those perpendicular. So they intersect and they form a 90-degree angle. The next example says PO. So here's PO. And MN. Here's MN. And if you look, those are definitely on the same plane. They're never going to touch, so that would be parallel. And the last one says name 2 segments that are parallel. So you could pick any 2 you want. I could do MI and NJ. Or IJ and LK. They just have to be on the same plane and never intersecting. The next one, you're going to want to draw some diagrams and notes for yourself. So complementary means 2 angles that add up to 90. I think the easiest way to remember this is that complementary starts with a C, and so does the word corner. And together, these angles are going to form a corner, and we know that corners add up to be 90 degrees. So your picture could look like this. So maybe we have these two angles here, and the first one's 30 and the second one's 60. Or we could have two angles that like aren't even attached to each other. They don't have to be attached, but they just have to add up to 90. We could also have supplementary angles, and so supplementary are going to be two angles that add up to 180 degrees. I remember this one because supplementary starts with S, and so does the word straight. And straight angles, we know, are 180 degrees. So our picture might look like this. So maybe we have one angle that's 120, and then our other angle over here is 60. So together, those are going to be 180. So they would be considered supplementary. Our next vocab word is adjacent, and these are going to be two angles that share a side. I like to remember this one because adjacent starts with an A, and so does the word attached. And these angles are going to be attached to each other. So here's a picture. So I've got two angles. I'm going to call them angle 1 and angle 2. And they are sharing this side right here. They're attached. The next one is linear pair. So linear pair are a special kind of supplementary angle in the sense that they have to be adjacent. So these angles have to be adjacent and supplementary. So your picture is going to look something like this. Okay, so they have to be attached to each other. They have to be supplementary. A good way to remember this is the word linear literally means line, and then pair obviously means two angles, so it's two angles forming a line. And then last is the word vertical. So vertical angles, I'm actually just going to draw a diagram for this instead of writing out. But vertical angles are formed when you have two lines that intersect, and they're going to be the angles that are on opposite sides. So like 1 and 2. You can kind of remember this because if you look, here's a little V, here's a little V. Okay, so vertical angles. And vertical angles are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And then over here, these angles, 3 and 4, if you look, here's a little V, here's a little V, they're also vertical. So angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. Okay, so then just a couple examples. The first one, how many degrees would an angle complementary to 26 degrees be? So again, remember complementary means, or starts with C, so does the word corner. In a corner, there's 90 degrees, so these need to add up to be 90. So 90 minus 26 is 64 degrees. Second example, how many degrees would an angle supplementary to 100 degrees be? So remember, supplementary starts with S, so does straight. This is supposed to add up to be 180. So 180 minus 100, that's 80. And then last one, So it's going to ask us some questions. So it starts with which angle is adjacent to ZXY. So we're going to start by looking for ZXY. So ZXY. So they want us to figure out if we have this angle here, what is adjacent to it. And remember, adjacent means attached. So they're going to be sharing a side. So there's actually two options. Angle 2 shares a side with this angle. Or angle 4 shares a side with this angle. Second one says which angle is a linear pair with angle 7. So here's angle 7. It's telling me what angle makes a straight line with 7. So if you look, here's a straight line. So I would need angle 8 to make this a straight line. And then last one, which angle is vertical to angle 5? So here's angle 5. Vertical needs to be on the opposite side, so that would be 7.